Fallen, fallen is Babylon the Great, the mother of whores. This is what John writes in Revelation 18, verse 2. So who is or what is Babylon? Well, we're told that there is a whore that is riding a beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. And we're told by John that the 7 heads represent 7 hills on which the woman sits. Now, Rome was referred to as the city on 7 hills. So John is referencing Rome. That's led many people to say, well, he's speaking of one day the Roman government will fall. And that could be part of the reference that he has. But there's something that John says about this that lets us know it's referring to something much more in the future. Because he says that this beast has 10 horns, and he says that these are 10 kings that have not yet received a kingdom. So he's not referring to the present Roman Empire, but something far in the future. So it's something to do with Rome, it's something to do with someone in the future. But the key to understanding Babylon is the whore. Now, some translators translate this woman as a prostitute. That's a bad translation. It's actually a whore, which means a married woman who's being unfaithful to her husband. So it's a reference to an unmarried woman who's not faithful. And we're told here in Revelation 18, verse 3, the kings of the earth committed adultery with her. Back in Bible days, they believed that adultery can only be performed by a person who was married. And so this is clearly a reference to the fact that this woman is married. She's a harlot. In other words, she's not faithful to her husband. She's the description of Proverbs where the woman says, come, my husband is a long way off. Let us make love and let us drink of our love. And so he's speaking there of a harlot. So why is this important? Because in the book of Revelation, he's then going to describe the bride of Christ, who's a virgin, who's a holy city coming down out of heaven versus the great city of the earth. So notice, contrast the bride of Christ, which is the church of the living God, coming down out of heaven, and we're a holy city. The church is a holy city, but he's describing an unfaithful church that becomes a harlot, that cheats on Christ. We're also told this harlot ends up killing God's saints. And here's what John does. He is astonished at this. Now, if he's referring only to the Roman Empire, why would he be astonished that Christians were being killed by the Roman Empire? Because they were already being killed. In fact, he knew all of his apostles' friends had all been martyred by the Roman Empire. So that should not really surprise him. But he's surprised when he sees the harlot, who's supposed to be faithful to the groom, Jesus, being unfaithful. And this is what horrifies him. He's referring to some future church that will be sitting in Rome that will turn away from Christ. The Protestant reformers believed without a doubt that Babylon was a Roman Catholic church, and I totally agree with them. Today, maybe it's hard for us to understand because, you know, who gets killed by the Catholic Church? They don't do that anymore. But imagine in the early Protestant reformers, man, Christians were being killed left and right by the Roman Catholic Church. And so people were running for their lives from this prostitute, this harlot, you know what I mean, who's killing them. And so they were right to say about this. We also know he's referring to this because in Revelation 18, it says, the voice of the bridegroom and the bride will never be heard in you again. Speaking of the harlot, never be heard in you again. That means he's saying there was a time when the bride and the bridegroom was heard in you, when you were faithful, when you followed Christ. And friend, the history of the Roman Church has been a powerful history with godly popes and bishops who loved the Lord, who stood for the truth, who helped evangelize the world. And so the Roman Church was, along with Constantinople, were the two most powerful churches in the Christian movement. And they had done so much, both of them had done so much to bring the gospel to the entire world. And so the Roman Church was faithful at a time, but there came a time when arrogance entered into the Pope, and they began to use their power to try to retain its adherents rather than propagate the gospel. And they started to kill off Christians who protested and said that some of the doctrines, especially the indulgences, you are unbiblical. You can't buy your way into heaven. And that's what popes were doing to raise money. They were selling indulgences, that if you'll give a certain amount of money, you can skip purgatory and the Pope will grant you complete forgiveness, so you won't even have to go to purgatory. All of these terrible doctrines that now the Catholic Church doesn't preach. So what he's describing is one day Babylon will fall. And that's what the Protestant Reformation did. It caused the Babylonian system within the Catholic Church to collapse and fall. So that now today, there's a revival taking place in the Roman Church again. And many people are getting saved and filled with the Holy Spirit. God's touching people's lives. But he's describing a period when it was the Dark Ages. And so many of my Catholic friends, they love listening to my teaching. And I'm telling you a little bit of the history. The Catholic Church really lost its way during the Dark Ages. And they're slowly but surely regaining its bearings and trying to get things right with God again. And so we need to pray for the Roman Church because they're part of the Christian church. Though, yes, in the past they made mistakes, but a lot of churches have made mistakes. Today, a lot of Protestant churches are kind of falling away from the Lord. And they need a revival too. And so John is describing Babylon has fallen. And I believe Babylon truly fell within the Roman church so that now the truth can come out of her finally again as it used to be. And so thank God for this vision of John. And this vision eventually has come to pass. And so we give God thanks that his word is holy and true. So somebody might ask me, would I join the Roman Catholic Church? And the answer is no, I would not, because while there has been some positive strides within the Catholic Church, there needs to be a lot more reformation, a lot more changing taking place. So if I were a follower of Christ, I would be part of an evangelical, spirit-filled congregation. I think you'll grow a lot faster if you do that. God bless you.